All right, a quick continuation of what the other video didn't quite catch, but I went and bought a bale feeder, largely because I need one. The reason being is because the hay that you guys saw me loading a while back, the lower quality, it was second cut new seeding, and I really didn't think that the cattle would care for it, but they are pretty well devouring those bales, and they're going about a bale a day, which if they weren't stomping on what they're stomping on, I think I can actually get them up to 2 days a bale. So that's why I went this route. It was eventually going to happen anyway, especially when I start feeding some better quality hay. I don't want to just dump it out for bedding. So the big thing is I went and picked this up here, and it's actually the same style we had growing up, except the ones we had growing up were orange instead of green. But we used to get, I almost bought, I may buy yet, it's actually square tubing for the uprights as opposed to this crushed piping. This is actually built a bit heavier. The thing that kind of turned me away from it initially is because we do have a weld right here, but there is no weld on the back end, which really isn't that big of a deal because most of your pressure from the cows pushing is going to be right here, and then it is catching slightly, not a lot, on this top ring. But the big modification I made that I've been noticing with the bale feeders we've been buying the last 5 to 10 years is the fact that when you go to tighten these up as tight as you possibly can get them, where you pretty much stall out the air impact, when you go and feed the cows, they're pushing on them enough that, and the rubbing, is that these bolts tend to back out or break off, which I don't think it's breaking off because I've seen them where they sit and get knocked around from the cattle, plus picking these rings up with a skid steer, and these work loose. So what I did is I went through all 3 of the bolts on each of the 3 sections, so there's 9 total, and the weld isn't exactly pretty on all of them, but the whole point was to make sure that bolt is not going to come loose. I did go over here on all 3 of them, basically just to see if I couldn't make a weld. I really don't think this is the issue, but this is my next course of action for future feeders, is if welding the bolts does not do the trick, I'm going to start making a habit of going through and making a bunch of tack welds down along here, maybe 4 different welds, to help hold these together. Because what happens is that you lose these top bolts, and then if it gets muddy and you need to move the feeder, I usually try to put the tines in between here so you're picking up where the seam is. And the problem is if that is missing and you haven't had a chance to replace it, which you typically don't, because by the time you see that it's no longer there, the cattle have actually bent it and beat it up enough that you can't really force it around without some major bending, either maybe a ratchet or hammer or whatever else. I've just been unsuccessful in trying to get the top bolts to line back up. I've tried, so it's more of a preventative maintenance issue. And this feeder, for how heavy it is, I mean, I can move it, but I'm not going to tear my back up trying to. So this is actually going to go out to my cows right now. I need to put a bale in for them again, and we'll see what happens in the next couple days as far as if this is really worth it or not, which I know it is because they're not going to be laying on it. But so from, what is that? You dump a bale out without a feeder, it goes from the table to the bed to the bathroom or something like that. So yeah, the other feeders that the one that I was originally going to get, which is why I went with this one, it was a square tubing, and the tubing was welded on, was it 2 or 3 sides, but on the back end, which you guys can't really see it anyway, but the back end, the tubing was open back here. And the reason I didn't like that is because we get plenty of rain in southwest Wisconsin, And those tubes would collect rainwater. It would run down into these tubes, and when it gets cold out, it would freeze, expand, and then it tears up your uprights. And then the bale feeder, once you start losing parts and pieces off of it, these things deteriorate rather quickly. And my goal is, as far as with the cows, I would like to have like 3 or 4. I mean, comfortably right now I could probably put 3 out there and have enough bunk space or feeder space for all the cows that are out in the lot right now. But to make sure that everybody's comfortable, 4 feeders preferably. Then if I could put four bales in, and I'm only feeding maybe once a week. So we'll get there. So let's go ahead and get this. And I believe what I cut off was me saying that we had to go ahead and get this feeder moved out of the way. So I'm going to do exactly what I don't like doing in particular, is carrying a feeder around with skid steer. This is hard on them. I mean, you can be as gentle as you want. I mean, I'm actually, the rest of these video clips are sped up, but I'm taking my time, and I don't really want to jostle it around too much, because then you start bending it, and once these things do start falling apart, I mean, it's a domino effect, and I mean, once they start going downhill, they never recoup. So that's why I did, like I said, go ahead and reinforce it like I had. And these cows will probably be harder on it than feeder calves, but I mean, it's better than letting this feed go to waste. And I'm gonna reiterate what I just said. I mean, this stuff, yeah, it doesn't look the greatest, but these cows absolutely love it. So I guess it's a win-win for me, because I didn't really think it'd sell that great, and I'm to the point now where the hay prices are at, I'd rather just feed it to my cattle. Hay prices are down about 80 bucks a ton compared to last fall. Last fall, hay was worth somewhere in the 150, 130, 140 price dollar per ton. And as of late, I think it's largely because we have the mild winter, almost the non-existent winter, the mild December, so guys were able to graze like we went ahead and did, plus the fact that it is March and it's basically spring weather. It really does feel just like spring, and hay prices are reflecting that. So I imagine a lot of people that were hoping for a late winter rally in hay prices are probably panic selling. I mean, I'm not saying that's for certain, but that's just kind of my take on the scenario. I don't have a whole lot of hay to sell. I will this upcoming year. I'm kind of glad this year acted the way it did, largely because it allows me to rethink my whole marketing strategy for any hay that I will be selling. So, I don't know, trying to pick the positives out of it. Cows are coming over, getting a little curious, they always do. But I sped this part up by like 4, everything else is by 2, just because walking around the round bales is really boring. The cows are happy, they're eating their salt, they're eating their hay, they like their bedding. I mean, this is actually nice bed pack eventually, so I can spread it out in the fields again. Doesn't really bother me at all. And once again, really carefully move this feeder back into the lot. I don't know how much this thing cost, and they didn't even know I picked it up at the local feed store, and they had just gotten them in, so they didn't know what the current prices were on them, if they had gone up, down, or sideways, which it was irrelevant to me at that point, because I know that they're cheaper than the one I bought for my parents, because I just needed a feeder, so I just bought the cheapest one at the time, and that was well over 300 bucks. So I went and found, setting this bale over here, a nice clean spot of concrete. The spot where I had the rest of the bales, or I had been feeding bales, is kind of wet. And what I'm probably going to do tomorrow or the next day or sometime within the next month or so, I mean, hopefully a lot sooner than that, I'm going to throw the bucket on the Bobcat, and I'm going to go ahead and scrape this lot up, all this muck, like just mud, manure, push it up in the pile, try to keep the concrete as clean as possible so these guys stay clean, they stay dry. Spring is nice, but I don't exactly want dirty cattle either, because the cleaner they are, the happier they are. I mean, who likes walking around in dirty clothes? You know, looking at it from a cow's perspective, this is something right here that we've actually had to deal with all winter, was the poor corn fodder or bedding bales quality. Wasn't my fault. I'm not looking for excuses, but the conditions we had to make bedding were absolutely terrible, and it shows. So normally when you can take the net wrap off, the bale will burst apart, but they molded. I mean, it was impossible to get anything made dry last fall. So I don't know. I'm gonna be doing that hay preservative. Either, I'm kind of up in the air right now. Harvest Tech is way overpriced in my opinion, but that might just be because it's coming through my local dealer. I don't know. I'm found I didn't know my feed store actually when I was picking up this bale feeder that's in this video. I see my local feed store carries Silo Guard, so I might do a little bit more research into Silo Guard, because I didn't think I could get it here locally, at least the liquid product. And then my local, the same place, the same dealer where I bought the New Holland hay rake, actually has the best price right now for a tote, which is what, 250 gallons or something like that. I'm not entirely sure, but I had to go catch the bale. They got the best price. It's Crop Saver, I believe, or Haymax, and it's basically the same product as Harvest Tech for a better price. So, and this is me cheating with the skid steer and ending the video. So thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I like having the cattle around yet, so not getting bored there. I'll talk to you guys later.